Are you ready for pain? Are you ready for suffering? If the answer is yes, then you're ready.
I see a lot of people expressing how they feel really betrayed that Alice Cooper would say something anti-trans when he appears so gender variant to us. But we've got to remember that public figures, like musicians, are brands. Someone said that about someone else recently. And Alice Cooper, the brand, wears makeup, has long hair, wears tight clothing. We feel that he's very gender variant in the way that he dresses, but that sells the music. That's the brand that sells the music. He can believe that transness is just a fad and fake for most trans people because he wears a costume of gender variance to perform on stage. And we have a deep connection with our gender. We don't wear a costume like that. So,
what do Carlos Santana and Alex Cooper have in common? They have both announced that they're transphobes in the last 24 hours. Santana did it in the middle of his concert.
Or you're lying your ass up. There is no virtual reality. When God made you and me, before we came out of the womb, you know who you are and what you are. Later on, when you grow up and you see things, and you start believing that you could be something that it sounds good, but you know it ain't right. Because a woman is a woman and a man is a man. That's it. Whatever you want to do in the closet, that's your business. So I'm okay with that. I am like this with my brother Dave Chappelle.
Alex Cooper chose to do it in an interview with Stereogum. Recently, some of your theatrical rock peers have commented about gender identity, with Paul Stanley and Dee Snider calling gender-affirming care for kids a sad and dangerous fad. As someone who played around with gender expectations early on, do you have any thoughts on what some of your contemporaries have said before they walked their comments back? Yeah, I'm understanding that there are cases of transgender, but I'm afraid that it's also a fad, and I'm afraid there's a lot of people claiming to be this just because they want to be that. I found it wrong when you've got a 6-year-old kid who has no idea. He just wants to play and you're confusing him, telling him, yeah, you're a boy, but you could be a girl if you want to be. I think it's so confusing to a kid. It's even confusing to a teenager. You're still trying to find your identity, and yet here's this thing going on saying, yeah, but you can be anything you want. You can be a cat if you want to be. I mean, if you identify as a tree, and I'm going, come on, what are we in, a Kurt Vonnegut novel? It's so absurd. It's gone now to the point of absurdity. The whole woke thing. Nobody can answer this question. Maybe you can. Who's making the rules? Is there a building somewhere in New York where people can sit down every day and say, okay, we can't say mother now. We have to say birthing person. Get that out to the wire right now? Who is this person that's making these rules? I don't get it. I'm not being old school about it. I'm being logical about it. It's getting to the point now where it's laughable. If anybody was trying to make a point on this thing, they turned it into a huge comedy. I don't know one person that agrees with the woke thing. I don't know one person. Everybody talks saying, isn't it stupid? And I'm going, well, I respect people. I respect people and who they are, but I'm not going to tell a 7-year-old boy, go put on a dress because maybe you're a girl. And he's going, no, I'm not. I'm a boy. So I say let somebody at least become sexually aware of who they are before they start thinking about if they're a boy or a girl. A lot of times I look at it this way, the logical way. If you have these genitals, you're a boy. If you have those genitals, you're a girl. There's a difference between I'm a male who is a female or I'm a female who's a male and wanting to be a female. You were born male, okay? That's a fact. You have these things here. Now the difference is you want to be a female. Okay, that's something you can do later on if you want to, but you're not born a male, born a female. I don't think parents are encouraging doubt in their kids' identities. I would just hope that they listen to their kids and find pediatricians that provide appropriate care. The greatest response from interviewer Rachel Brodsky. Well, I can see somebody really taking advantage of this, though. A guy can walk into a women's bathroom at any time and just say, I just feel like I'm a woman today, and have the time of his life in there, and he's not in the least bit, he's just taking advantage of that situation. Well, that's going to happen. Somebody's going to get graped, and the guy's going to say, well, I felt like a girl that day, and then I felt like a guy. Where do you draw this line? Something's gonna raise its ugly head, and all of a sudden people are going to start, wait a minute, we've got to get this under control. It's almost like that with AI. People would say, well, what about AI? And I say the only person that shouldn't have AI is Paul McCartney. It's dangerous. My friend thinks that's supposed to say should, not shouldn't. Don't know if that makes it better or worse. So there you have it. 2 icons showing their true colors. They can now join Clapton on my shit list. Which one do you think was more egregious? Let me know in the comments! I'm gonna go with Santana because no one knew that was gonna happen. And there were probably queer people in the audience who were absolutely devastated. Yeah, this is a rough 24 hours.
So, much like some of his increasingly geriatric and irreverent shock rocker cohorts, Alice Cooper apparently has some things to say about trans folk. And unfortunately, it reads like a greatest hits album of some of the same inane dribble that we've seen time and time again from folks who equate being progressive half a century ago to getting it now. You know, people who say stuff like trans folks getting to use the correct bathroom will lead to assault. Parents are leading their kids to be trans before their kids even know what gender they are. Transness is a fad. And the relative newcomer to the party, you can't say mother anymore, you have to say birthing person. Well, man who named himself Alice, let me assuage you of at least that last fear. You see, it's still perfectly acceptable to say mother. For example, you are a motherfucking fraud. You never cared about rebels or weirdos or queer kids or anyone else on the outskirts of society. The kids who could have used your love the most. You just put on a motherfucking costume and took their motherfucking money. And look, I liked Alice Cooper, and he is the clear godfather of some art that I adore. It brought me no joy to say any of what I just did. But if you think for 1 second that my nostalgia is more important than the safety and happiness of trans kids, then you are one sorely mistaken motherfucker.
From day one, I talked about getting out.
For those of you who keep trying to tell me that what Alice Cooper said wasn't transphobic, here's a little snippet of what he said. So basically the reporter was like, I don't think parents are forcing their kids to do anything they don't want to do. I think they're just trying to find the appropriate care for them. His response is, well, I can see somebody really taking advantage of this though. A guy can walk into a woman's bathroom at any time and just say, I just feel like I'm a woman today, and have the time of his life in there, and he's not in the least bit. He's just taking advantage of that situation. Well, that's going to happen. Somebody's going to get, and the guy's going to say, well, I felt like a girl that day, and then I felt like a guy. Where do you draw this line? That's fucking disgusting. That's fucking disgusting. That's fucking disgusting. And then he also said the classic thing that it's going to be confusing to a kid, and it's even confusing to a teenager. People are confused because they've never been educated about it before. If we start educating people early on, they're not going to be confused about it. Yeah, but you can be anything you want. You can be a cat if you want to be. I mean, you identify as a tree, and I'm going, come on, what are we? People aren't identifying as trees. That is like a whole transphobic thing in and of itself. Like, the fact that there are people who read these quotes, like these are quoted statements from Alice Cooper, and thought, no, that's not harmful to trans people at all. No, that's psychotic. That's fucking psychotic. People are just trying to make it sound like all he said was that being trans is a fad. Who the fuck says that? And then there's people who are saying he's just like a confused old man. I could give a fuck. Keep your mouth shut about trans people. It's none of your fucking business. This is also another really funny and awesome thing that he said. So yeah.
Kind of a part 2 on this. So, I just find it ironic that someone who was treated like a freak for wearing makeup back in his heyday would call trans a fad. And especially because if it weren't for like the late 60s, early 70s glam style rock stars that came out, you know, like Kiss, Alice Cooper, David Bowie, those types, if they didn't come out the way, that they did, I don't think we'd be having these conversations about masculinity and gender that we are having now. They really challenged what it meant to be a man and to dress like a man, to look like a man. You know, the long hair, the eyeliner. I mean, Bowie was wearing like full-on lipstick, dresses, and stuff like that in his albums. And they were treated horribly because of it. And then we get into the 80s, and you have hair metal, and you have all these men. I mean, they're all men, straight men, all in like big poofy hair, makeup, everything. I mean, some of the album covers for Poison, like, those guys look like drag queens. Not good drag queens, but drag queens nonetheless. And you know that they faced homophobia and all kinds of stuff just because of the way they presented themselves. Now, I'm not going to say that those people are good people, because I guarantee you they were also homophobic, and the reason why they treated women like crap and slept with, you know, underage girls and stuff was to kind of be all macho and masculine, and to just exert their power. I still find it interesting that, like, they challenge these gender norms, and yet they think that it's just a fad, that it's not something that should be respected. And Alice Cooper saying this is pretty hurtful. First of all, it's not a fad. I mean, trans people have always existed. It's just that now more people are being open about it because they're not scared to be. But very soon they will be, and they're starting to get scared, and they're going to be silent again, and we're going to have fewer trans people. That's just the way it is. The trans life expectancy is still, like, low. Very low. At one point when I was doing research on it, it was like 35 years old, because they kill themselves or they get murdered in high numbers. So when people say this kind of stuff, it encourages that violence and that lack of just concern for the well-being of these people that deserve everything. I have friends who are, you know, male to female, female to male, trans, and what they've had to go through in their lives breaks my heart. And when people are passing laws against just presenting yourself differently than what you were born as, and banning drag, banning just people being happy and having fun, it makes me really hate this country.
Alice Cooper says gender-affirming care for transgender kids is a fad and condemns woke things, saying that he was afraid that it's also a fad. Using common anti-trans talking points to elaborate, the star said that he felt children were not mature enough to make major decisions about their gender identity, claiming that allowing transgender people to use the bathroom that corresponds with their gender identity would lead to violent crimes. A guy could walk into a woman's bathroom at any time and say, "I just feel like I'm a woman today," and have the time of his life in there, Cooper said. He's just taking advantage of that situation. Somebody's going to get raped. This is probably the dumbest thing I've heard Alice Cooper say in my entire life. And also, a rapist doesn't need to identify as transgender in order to, you know, commit a crime. You know, anybody can easily just go into a bathroom when no one's there, go in and then, you know, commit a crime. Honestly, when it comes to celebrities, never put these people on a pedestal. At the end of the day, they are human, and at the end of the day, let's be honest, not every human being is good. There's a lot of awful people out there. And sometimes the people that you idolize and look up to might be one of those awful people. To Alice Cooper, you done fucked up, lad. You really done fucked up.
Okay, so nobody should be surprised at the recent anti-trans comments coming from Dee Snider or Alice Cooper, because There has been long-standing internalized transphobia within the drag community for like forever.
The last thing I want to say about Alice Cooper is that he needs to give me these damn boots if he's gonna act the way he does.
What's crazy is that all the musicians from that era that share Alice Cooper's opinions, or the ones that have backtracked them, were the poster children for the Satanic Panic. These are the musicians that Christian America did not want their kids listening to because they thought they were evil and satanic. And now they're all like, there's just something, there's a through line with people that they lose their open-mindedness. You know, these are the people that fought against censorship in the 80s. People who were like, you know, Tipper Gore is against freedom of speech, and now they're, you know, pretty much about-faced all those things. It's crazy to me. And they've embraced the ideology of the Christian right.
I am deeply saddened to hear about Alice Cooper and what he said about the trans community. I've seen him live like 5 times. I have most of his albums on vinyl, several t-shirts, was raised on his music. This is so disappointing. Trigger warning, just because I'm about to mention violins, so if you want to scroll, totally fine. So first of all, Alice, the biggest threat to women's safety is also the biggest threat to trans people's safety, and that is cis men, and they don't have to pretend to be anything else in order to essay, grape, or unalive women and trans people. And a lot of these old school rock stars aren't super vocal about that part. Second, I don't care if y'all are mothers or fathers, unless y'all are the mother or father of a trans child, y'all don't know shit. And God forbid you know the parent of a trans child and you go off and talk this kind of bullshit like you fucking know better. Lastly, I don't care that the motherfucker is 75 years old. There are 75-year-old trans people. Some of them are on this app right now. And I don't care that he came from a different time. My grandmother passed away in her 80s in 2019, all right? Before that, she shared a bathroom with a trans woman at a family wedding. And you know what she didn't do? Go off and say some dumb shit like she knew better.